Hi there, you're listening to Unnatural Selection, the show about newsy type stuff and things. My name is George.
My name is Tom.
And my name is Adam.
And with our powers combined, we are Unnatural Selection. Make sure you visit us at our salubrious home on the web, unnaturalshow.com. It's a good sign that I am surprised when I hit the go button and everything works.
Yep. I think it's the good luck of it being a Barbenheimer weekend, George. I think it's a Barbenheimer miracle.
Okay, so what you're referring to there...
It's all we celebrate.
It's actually people observe Barbenheimer. It's actually not a celebration. It's an observance.
Half a celebration. You start off with some mourning and then you celebrate. Kind of like the yin and yang of the movies.
Very nice. So I've seen neither Barbie nor Oppenheimer, the two movies to which you are referring there. Can we get a quick one sentence review of each of those movies and whether we should spend our hard-earned dollary dues to go?
As in you want a single sentence for each movie or a single sentence to ruin them both?
A single sentence to ruin them, is that what you said?
To review them both.
To review, yeah, just like a quick review.
Sure. Barbie was fantastic.
Okay.
I loved Barbie, like a exploration of how Barbie has both empowered and hindered feminism. Brilliant. Fantastic. Went way harder than it needed to be.
It had any right to go.
To be a big vehicle to advertise Mattel shit. It did not need to actually put any effort in, and it did, and it's awesome. Oppenheimer, kind of boring, in my view. I need to think about it some more, but like there were points where I was a bit like, oh wow, it's still going, isn't it? Like, man, this is long. It feels like it's torn between being two different movies, I think. Like, yeah. Is it about the moral complexities of them inventing the bomb and then using it? Or is it about the personal conflict between Oppenheimer and the head of the Atomic Energy Commission? It kind of tried to be both. And yeah, I don't think it works. Yeah. Anyway. It is the loudest movie about professors doing a lot of math.
Is it just because they shot a bunch of stuff and then threw some shit at the wall and in the editing studio and went, yeah, that kind of works?
I mean, I guess so, but they're just two quite dense topics. And one is more, overarching, like, oh, let's talk about the implications of inventing nuclear weapons and all that sort of stuff. And the other one's a very personal story between a rivalry of two men, right? So
and Matt Damon.
Yeah, Matt Damon was fun in it. But Downey Jr. is great. Yeah, and the big bang is an experience.
I was going to say, were there any big explodey boys? Because that's what I'm really there for. I'm there for the Chris Nolan 70mm film experience of watching big explodey boys in the desert. That's kind of what I was hoping for.
I guess, I feel this isn't spoilers because history, but you don't get to see them bomb Hiroshima and Nagasaki, but you do see the Trinity test.
Bomb!
Which is,
bomb!
A big kaboom.
Show the bombing of Hiroshima, you cowards! I want to see sloughing flesh. Show them what they did.
Okay, George, if you want to see Hiroshima, you just need to watch X-Men, what's it called? Wolverine 2, the second Wolverine movie.
That's the one I haven't seen. I was like, when did an X-Men movie Hiroshima?
No, the Wolverine. The second Wolverine film, he's in Nagasaki for some reason.
Yes, I do remember that. Yeah. He was like in a well or something?
Yeah, isn't the story that he saves the life of like a Japanese soldier or general, and then in the future he's like, I want your gift of eternal life. Yeah. Do me this favor. Good. I haven't seen the movie. That's just what I got from the trailer. But all right, check it out. Box there, Wolverine.
The elevator pitch, but anyway.
Yeah.
As to how, excuse me, I'll just talk very loudly. As to how the Japanese managed to capture Wolverine, I don't know, but
very carefully.
Very carefully.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of people that weren't very careful, we should also say that we are a news and politics podcast. We're not a film podcast, although we will often diverge into that, and you're welcome to listen to our divergence at any point in time. But
you're also welcome not to. You can just start skipping when it's like, they're not talking about what they were talking about before. Just fast forward. I don't know.
It's a free podcast.
We won't know when we get back to it, though, so... you might just come in the middle of a sentence where we're just talking about something wildly crazy out of context.
I'm not your dad. I can't make you do anything. So it's a News of Politics podcast. Top story: Daddy Dan Andrews has pulled the plug on the Commonwealth Games, and people are up in arms, I guess.
Yeah, it's a tough one, I think it is.
So the Commonwealth Games were set to take place in regional Victoria in 2026, and Dan Andrews came out this week and basically said, look, we modelled the costings of this, were initially estimated at $2.6 billion, and the recent estimates have come in at between $6 and $7 billion, and that's too much money, and so we're not going to do it. And everyone was, I think a lot of the right-wing media ecosystem just kind of like reflexively were just like, sack Dan Andrews? They're like, is this something? Is this, can we get mad about it? They're like, personally, I don't give a fuck about the Commonwealth Games because no one does. But then they're like, I guess this is a cudgel? Do people care about, is this something? Is this anything?
Do we have a hammer in our hands? I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course they just straight away, like every right-wing pundit just like creamed their jorts. They don't even know why. They weren't even watching the press conference. They were just like, that felt good. What happened? Oh, it's something we can drag Dan Andrews over the coals for. Excellent.
Yeah, if every right-wing commentator is a hammer, then every nail is a Dan Andrews. So
I was looking at a cafe the day afterwards, and all of the papers, including The Age, Herald, like all of them, left wing, right wing, middle, were all about the Com Games and the expected fallout of the Commonwealth Games.
Oh, the fallout! The humanity! Oh God, what will we do? Not the Commonwealth Games! Oh no!
Meanwhile, most of the world and even people within the Commonwealth are just like, the what?
The Kamaha?
The Kamaha?
Oh yeah, that was happening, wasn't it?
I was I was today years old when I learned that we were hosting the Commonwealth Games in 2026. And apparently we're not anymore. And I guess that's a shame.
Yeah. Well, it's a shame. I've seen people pointing out, like, given, as you say, it was going to be hosted in regional Victoria. So I know there was probably, that would be good for regional areas, potentially, like a boost of tourism or like whatever. But also it could be terrible. Like, if they do, we have to build a Commonwealth Games village, and I don't know, it totally fucks the local.
People were upset that okay, we're not getting the Commonwealth Games, and this was meant to be a big boon to all the regions in regional Victoria and yada yada yada. But the Victorian government has still said they're still going to spend $2 billion on building out regional. Like, you can just do the thing. You don't need the excuse of a Commonwealth Games to just like spend money in the regions, which they're still going to do. So I don't really see what the problem is. Just like, hey, rather than filtering the money through this middleman sort of event of the Commonwealth Games, couldn't we just spend money on the regions? Like, yeah, why don't we just do that? That seems to make more sense rather than a 12-day sporting event.
It's kind of like, if you look back at the history of this particular event, the Commonwealth Games is kind of cursed, and it's kind of the
spooky.
It's the thing that's like, everyone out loud. It's like meant to be, held in higher regard. But in
the
private,
Commonwealth Games. Can't
it's the thing
wait.
you don't really want to be holding. It's like the shit stick that you just like you get stuck with, and you're like, oh, it's such a great honor. And this is the thing, right? So the original city that was meant to be and they do this like 10 years in advance, right? They assign these things 10 years. So you've got 10 years to plan it or whatever it may be. In 2015, the South African city of Durban originally won the rights to host the 2022 games.
Won, quote unquote.
But was stripped of its right to do that in 2017 because of quote unquote financial concerns. So as a result, the city that had won the 2026 games, which was Birmingham, they brought them forward, and so the last games were held in Birmingham, but they only because they had to like jump ahead and grab it, which meant the 2026 games did not have a host.
Because no one wanted it, to be clear. Like,
no one wanted
the reason no one wants these games is it's the same thing that like when LA hosted the Olympics back in the day. Like, these things are massive, costly endeavors. And the reason that countries do it is really about prestige and a lot of like sort of factors that are a little bit mushy, a little bit undefinable. Like from a gross money spend perspective, a lot of times these games don't work. But whether it be the Commonwealth Games or the Olympic Games or whatever, like the money spent to upgrade stadiums, that if there's not then, and like updating infrastructure is good if it creates additional productive capacity, right? That's the term in economic circles, additional productive capacity. You build a train line, and if additional people can then get in and out of the city and go to work and to create economic activity, then that, you've created the capacity for people to do more productivity, more stuff than they could do before. But the problem with a lot of these stadiums is they don't create additional productive capacity. They build a stadium, they hold the 12-day games in them, and then they just sit like at 25% capacity for the rest of their lives. They don't really add anything to the local economy. They don't really do anything. It's not like building a school or building a railway or building a freeway where it's like people are going to use this thing. Yeah. It's like you could just build a stadium and then you just have a stadium that you don't need or necessarily use to its full.
It depends on,
it
depends on the context, right? Just in some places, those stadiums are great and they do fill out for the local sporting events. But in some cases, they don't, because turns out who wants to do swimming in Sochi? No one. I mean, that's a bad example because Sochi is a Winter Olympic Games. But like, for instance, Sochi, a lot of the infrastructure there is left rotting because there's no one around.
Yeah.
But,
so really, hang on. So really is what we're saying, all right, so Victoria's pulled out, like we don't need all this sort of stuff, like it's some unnecessary infrastructure and all that sort of stuff. There is another place in Australia that last I checked was like, champing at the bit to get a stadium. We have it in Hobart.
You're saying we
should have the Commonwealth Games.
Well, here's the thing: is Victoria's pulled out of the 2026 Commonwealth Games, and for all the critique that's been leveled at Victoria for doing so, I've noticed fucking none of the other cities, none of the other states have been forthcoming and go, oh yeah, we'll have the games. What a massive boon to our Tasmanian economy. No one's saying that, right? Because on the face of it, the prima facie, on the face of it, you look at it and do the numbers, and it doesn't really sort of make sense to do. And a lot of these mega projects tend to, as we've talked about on the podcast previously, tend to overrun. So yeah, the consultants told them what they wanted to hear. And they said, yeah, it all only cost $2.6 billion. No worries, mate. And, a couple of years later, this is before we've even like really started doing the proper preparation to implement what would need to be ready in order to do these games in 2026. And already the cost has blown out to $6 to $7 billion. So it's like, normally the project needs to start before it blows out. This has already blown out before we've even, set a shovel in the ground. So I can hardly imagine most governments, what they do is they start doing a mega project. It starts blowing out. They go, fuck, it's blown out. What are we going to do? Fucking shut up. Don't say anything about it. And then they just
cover it up.
They wait for the event to happen, and then it passes, and they go, the event blew out. We spent all this extra money. What are you going to do about it? They go, I don't know. Next government's problem. And then they leave. I think it's I'm sure a lot of people are upset about this, but it seems like if it doesn't stack up on the numbers, it seems like everyone's complaining about Victoria's budget in the last couple of months. It seems like if fiscal conservatism is a thing that you allegedly care about, then surely pulling the plug on $7 billion of wasted investment would be a good thing rather than a bad thing. But here we are.
I mean, in the lead up to the point about other states and governments not wanting to do it, in the lead up to 2026, KL in Malaysia,
Kuala Lumpur,
Cardiff, Calgary, Edmonton, Adelaide, they all applied and then withdrew over to concerns over costs.
Yeah, exactly.
Melbourne. So what had happened was Victoria was basically, I don't want to say we were approached, but I'm assuming there was, we were sort of seen as, because we'd held it, quite recently. We've hosted big sporting events, and we're hosting at the moment the Women's World Cup. We were obviously we've said yes, but the thing was, and this is where it gets interesting, and this is potentially where it gets the numbers get a bit like, oh, did you guys not think about this? It wasn't just Melbourne. It was, we wanted to hold the Victorian Games in regional centres.
I mean, it sounds like a great idea, right? Like, yeah, we'll hold it all over the region, but it blows out the cost of everything because you need to get people and resources to the regions.
You have to build the infrastructure in 7 different spots to make anything work.
Yep. Which is, I guess, if you're looking at it from like, we want to invest in the regions perspective, I get it. I get why you would want to do that. And, that's been a big talking point this government. We want to invest in the regions. But as an ABC commentator said this week, like, you can just invest in the regions. Like, you don't need a reason. You don't need a big excuse being these big wasteful games in order to do that. Like, if you think Bendigo deserves an aquatic, like, and the idea that everything needs to be quantified in terms of a return on investment is also problematic as well. Like, why can't we just build an aquatic center in Bendigo? Because that would be a good quality of life thing to do for the people in Bendigo. Like, maybe it doesn't need to make financial sense on the details in order to be like a worthy thing to do, because it improves the lives of the people in the community. Like, we can do good stuff for communities just because it's good.
Because then the city council has to run it, and they can't run it at a loss because they're already running at a loss.
It needs to be able to run itself, I guess. It can't go bankrupt. But like, if there is demand, even if it's not like, we get the money back. If people are going to use the thing, we can build things that people use, right? For a great, hilarious example of this, listen to the podcast The Dollop, episode 545, called the 1984 Olympic Games, which talks about the Olympic Games in Los Angeles. I was trying to remember
which Olympic it was that The Dollop did an episode on, and it was fascinating.
It was a shit show, and it talks a lot about exactly the problems with these big mega events. And the problem with the Commonwealth Games is it's not even a big mega event like the Olympics, because the Olympic people that watch the Olympics and the TV rights, and like the Olympics is a much larger scale of event, so it gets more interest and more money. The problem with the Commonwealth Games is that nobody except people in the Commonwealth give a fuck. Like, it started off as the British Empire Games. Okay, but so it's just like we're talking about the colonialism games, and it's just a bunch of countries around the world that Britain stepped on and decided, I reckon this is ours. Now, why don't you all get into an arena and fight each other? And we're all like, that's a great idea, Britain. What an excellent idea to be doing 1 century on.
But even then, like, in terms of the Commonwealth, it's literally just the UK, Australia. I think India had it recently.
Yeah, there's not much of a Commonwealth left.
Even Canada, who are pretty well off, are going, we don't want to do it. We don't want to. Like, Canada is like the other big Commonwealth country. Don't want to have a bar of it. Like, they don't want to get involved. They'll send a couple of athletes over, but they don't want to do anything with it. So it's not even, when they talk about the Commonwealth, everyone's very happy to be involved, but no one wants to bear the responsibility. Yeah. Because it's a big fucking hole in the ground. As George mentioned before, potentially, this is where it gets a little bit interesting, is with the way the initial costing was calculated, if you will. So 2.6 billion was the initial estimate. They used external consultants to come up with these numbers.
From EY and Ernst & Young, EY. Wasn't it?
Yeah. So they were involved, and then there were multiple people involved, but they were one of the firms that was providing advice. And then obviously that was done sort of last year or the year before, and that has now changed magically. So whether or not they've gone to another consultant, or whether it's internal people doing the budgeting, or whether they've just literally started to get quotes and it's all looking a bit,
and they're just doing the math
crazy,
and adding things up and going, actually, this doesn't make any sense.
And so it's got a lot of people talking about now, well, in light of the whole PwC tax leak scandal, stuff with Robodebt and everything else, but like they're wondering now, like, what was actually going on with these consultants? Like, were they just potentially telling the government
what they wanted
to hear? Yeah. Now, that being said, the Commonwealth Games Federation, which are the guys that organise all this, they are basically saying, well, no, it's not going to cost $6 or $7 billion.
But of course, they're completely biased, because they have an incentive to make sure that Victoria does go and host the game. So of course they're going to say, no, it's not going to cost us $6 to $7 billion because we want you to host the games. It's only going to cost 50 cents and a smile.
The last one's at the Gold Coast, and the other one's in Birmingham. Were about 2 to 3 billion, I think, which is more around the estimate.
Wasn't that prior to the pandemic, where the cost of labor and materials has massively exploded, which is the whole reason that a bunch of builders are going out of business in the last year, is because it doesn't make fiscal sense anymore to build things in the way that we've been doing for the last couple of decades. Like, there's a lot of systemic pressures and things that have changed in the last couple of years because of the pandemic. Like, this is not a surprise to me.
But yeah, the question, I guess, is the fact, was the number undercooked in the first place? Because we took it on during and after the pandemic. It was before all the interest rate rises, to be fair. But it wasn't. We took it on. We didn't take it on. We took it in on like mid-pandemic / the end of the pandemic. It wasn't sort of beforehand. So,
well, but maybe it was a thing at that point where it's like, oh, we're going to need things to like juice the economy and stimulate, growth. And we weren't expecting all the supply chain shortages and issues. And, Victoria's notorious for, yes, we're doing a lot of stuff and in terms of building infrastructure, which is great. It's sorely needed. But as you've talked about on the podcast before, Adam, what that means is a lot of the talent is going to these massive infrastructure projects and not going into building houses. Why would you go and do a small build somewhere when you can work on a big project and get paid a lot
20%,
more?
yeah.
Right. So there's a whole argument there of like, okay, well, that's great. We're doing all these mega projects and, doing this big capital expenditure on investing in Victorian infrastructure. That's good. But it also means the talent pool isn't there for other kinds of builds. So when you need to employ someone to go and build a stadium for the 2026 Commonwealth Games, well, you as the government have introduced all of this extra competition for labor for yourself to compete against in order to hire those people away and get them to do this other project, right? So,
and they're also trying to get they've got several mega projects already underway in Victoria, but they haven't really got a heap of additional capital. It's just not there.
And Victoria as a state has been criticised for having too much debt.
Well, this is the gotcha, right? From the Conservatives is where the
claiming
debt is
fiscal
forecasted,
responsibility.
Yeah, the budget is going to blow up by $40 billion over the next something like 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, so it's going to go up from 135.4 billion next year to projected to go to 171.4 billion by 2027.
Ouch.
That's Treasury's
billion
predictions.
with a B.
Which is a lot. Which is a lot for a state, I'll admit. But also, you have to understand that CapEx, right, capital expenditure, means when you're investing in big infrastructure projects, this is what that means. You spend a bunch of money up front, you create productive capacity, and then that is what will carry you through the next decade, 2 decades worth of economic growth, is based on the additional things that people can do with the infrastructure that you have provided, if you've done it correctly. So
or
it's
you
like
could just get Transurban to pay for it and then
no,
charge tolls for
no,
100 years.
as we
That's
know,
another option.
don't get me started on Transurban, bro. No, it is a responsibility that the government is assuming to take on this debt, and they are kind of making a gamble to say that like this is where we think the economy is going, and we want to support that. Now, a part of that is necessary. The problem with Victoria is that a lot of this infrastructure should have been built 20 years ago, like the upgrades to the train lines, removing level crossings, like the north-south, east-west, upside-down link. Like all of these things should have been done a long time ago, and it's been a chronic underinvestment in the community for these kinds of projects over the last 20, 30 years, which has gotten us to this point. So all the liberals can turn around and say, isn't it nice? We've got a surplus. How good is this big shiny surplus? It's like, but the hospitals are exploding. Everything's falling apart at the seams. And I'm like, yes, but look at the surplus. Isn't it shiny? Isn't it wonderful? Don't you want a big shiny surplus of your own? And we've been doing that for 30 years, and now we don't have the infrastructure that we need to support the urban sprawl that has become Melbourne. We just keep building outwards and outwards and outwards, and there aren't things like hospitals and train lines and all of the necessary services to support these suburbs just built, plonked in the middle of nowhere. That's just all they've got is a Woolies and a Big W, and that's it for miles.
And a Bunnings. Let's not forget the Bunnings.
Yeah, you get the Bunnings. Yeah. That's about it. But you need to have
good medical treatment at the Bunnings.
You need to have, if we're going to encourage 1.5 million immigrants to come through over the next, whatever the next estimated period is, then we need to have, which is fine, like that we can do that, and that will stimulate economic growth and other things that, getting skilled labor in and things like that can be good for the country. But if you're going to do that, then you also need to make a corresponding investment in the infrastructure and the services to actually make, to facilitate those additional people. And that's not going to happen if you don't invest in the community. So like, I am aware that it's a lot of money that is going into debt, but I'm convinced that it is going to things that are where it should be going, right?
But George, what about the cancelled contract penalties we have to pay?
Yeah, I mean, look, their opening bid, I couldn't really, their opening bid, right? They've said it's going to cost $1 billion to cancel this contract. I was like, okay, so your opening bid is $1 billion. Would you accept $100 million? Like, that's just, of course, that's what they're going to say. They're going to say, you can't cancel it. It's going to be monstrously expensive. It's like, okay, that's the opening salvo. That is the start of negotiations. I'd rather spend $400 million on not doing the games than, wasting $7 billion on actually conducting the games and throwing good money after bad and throwing it into a black hole. Like, ideally, you wouldn't waste 400 or 500 or whatever the number ends up being. You wouldn't waste $500 million if you had the opportunity not to. But, if those are the two choices, like real talk, real politic, in terms of what the choices are at this stage, then I'd choose the former over the latter. But, I mean, you're going to get hammered either way.
Yeah. The thing I take away from all this, you got to get hammered either way. And the great news is that I think Daddy Dandrews has set the precedent that we can just pull out of anything.
Yeah.
Like, you can.
He's the king of pullouts. That's why he's got no kids.
You can be... He has kids.
That was a joke.
You can like be as committed to anything for as long term as you can claim that you have. Like fucking a month ago, I saw this on this week's on Gruen this week that they showed. Oh yeah, but a month ago this ad played, and they had an ad for like it's 1,000 days to the Victorian Commonwealth Games or whatever. So like a month ago, they had an ad campaign about the games coming up, and then a month later, they go, no, you know what? We can just bail out of it. Like, forget how committed we've been. So can I just say stage 3 tax cuts?
100%.
Albo, I hope you're paying attention. You can just not do things. You can just not do it. Like, just stop it.
Just don't do it.
Yeah, you get a bad day in fucking every Rupert Murdoch masthead for a couple days, and then it's done.
Yep.
And it's done. And then you've gained, like, all our respect.
Yeah, and also the better part of $7 billion towards the budget bottom line. So, yeah.
Yeah, you can just not do it. You know how you're thinking about doing it? Don't.
Yeah.
I don't know, guys. I mean, think about the regional pole vaulters who are missing out.
Oh, not the regional pole vaulters. Oh, no.
We're missing out as a part of this cancellation.
What about the Bendigo Pummel Horse Society? What do I do? Who gives a fuck? I don't care.
Give them more pummel horses. Invest in the region.
Bro, what if I give you 100 pummel horses? Yeah, all the fucking gymnastics rings that you could to your heart's content.
Yeah. Or 50 really big pommel horses.
So you're saying like 50
What's a pommel horse? Let's back up a little bit. What the fuck is a
You never seen that? It's kind of like a tall bench with padding on the top, and people do acrobatics and shit on it and like flipping.
I was thinking of a literal horse breed.
No,
I was like,
it's like it looks like the middle section of a horse that you'd like straddle to ride a horse, but like it's kind of like a triangular.
It's a piece of gymnastics equipment
with a padded top and 2 handles, and they
they do the flipping around. They do the flipping around their legs underneath them.
This is my demonstration of a pommel horse on camera.
It's pretty good. I can't see your legs, but you're doing a great job from the waist up.
Oh, so. I'm an ex-Olympic pommel horseian.
Pommel.
Is that what they're called? Pommeler. I'm a pommeler.
Do we think? Real talk, boys. Real talk.
Okay, let's break it down. Okay, guys. All right, real talk.
Do we think
it's just you and me? No one's listening to this.
Is like we were saying, there's going to be no political fallout, but is this just going to be the thing that all of a sudden is going to inflate or turn the empty man in a suit that is the Victorian Liberal Party into a man wearing half a suit. Is this going to be the transition?
Remind me of the name of the leader of the Victorian Liberal Party.
Michael White guy?
No, it's John Prosciutto, right?
Bless you.
something Prosciutto.
John Prosciutto. That's correct. Yeah.
I said prosciutto facetiously, but yeah.
First of all, Tom, that was incredibly racist. Second of all, John Prosciutto, or the man who his mum refers to as
but yeah, at least John Prosciutto doesn't have such a white made up man name, like Matthew Guy and Michael Bryan.
Just Bob Reelman.
Yeah, Guy Everyman.
So I personally don't. I guess it's sad for the athletes, but fucking suck it up. I mean, it's not, get into the Olympics, get into real games, you know what I mean?
Or like Canada, fucking you're part of the Commonwealth, start fucking doing something with it. There's other countries.
The whole idea of the Commonwealth
original British Empire Games held in Ontario?
I think that's where they started.
Many years ago.
Literally 100 years ago.
You're saying hey, Canada, pick up some slack. The very first one was there. Have some damn respect. Ontario is in Canada, right? Did I just make a huge idiot of myself?
Ontario's in Canada, yeah.
I thought it was, but halfway through that silly speech, I was like, oh, have I been a complete and total fuck up to the whole internet again?
No, you did good.
No, I'm just going to have a quick look. I don't reckon they've held it in the last, many, many years. And I can't find anywhere.
Maybe they're just really good at getting.
Here we go. So it's Birmingham, Gold Coast, Glasgow, Delhi. So there's been Malaysia had it in 1998, Delhi had it in 2010, and then aside from that, it's been Australia and England, or Australia and the UK.
I think we've discovered the true villains of the story. Canada. The natural villain.
1994, Canada held the Commonwealth Games.
Right. So,
and in
29 years ago.
Yeah.
Fucking, I don't know. Pull your socks up, Canada.
I'm rounding up, but roughly one George ago was when Canada last did something of utility for the Commonwealth Games. So thanks for that, Canada. The true villains of any sporting story. Speaking of villains, next up on the chopping block is Kathryn Campbell. So you might recognize Kathryn Campbell from some of your night terrors. If you were someone who owed the government money as part of the Robodebt scandal, she was a senior bureaucrat who oversaw the rollout of the illegal Robodebt scheme. And this week she has been suspended without pay following the damning findings of the Royal Commission that we talked about over the last couple of weeks. So, Kathryn Campbell, cancelled or super cancelled? What do we think? Where do we think she is on the 12 steps to political death and resurrection? What step do we think
she's not a politician, but she's definitely she's suspended. So she's just cancelled. She's not super cancelled yet.
Yeah. I guess this is sort of one of those instances of the thing that people were kind of calling for happened, which is good because following being the what was she, the secretary of the Department of Human Services during sort of the majority of the Robodebt scandal, that everyone's like, okay, cool, but while you're giving all this evidence to the commission and all that sort of stuff, and we're all finding out of maybe the misgivings and poor conduct over this whole period, you've been getting nearly $1 million a year working on the submarine project. That doesn't seem right. You shouldn't be allowed to keep doing your $1 million government job while you're being investigated for bad governmenting.
Yeah.
That doesn't seem right.
I do feel it's a bit like Labor trying to save face here, because they're they appointed her.
Well, this is the thing.
They knew that she was somehow involved in the Robodebt thing.
So when Labor comes into power a year ago, all of a sudden Kathryn Campbell gets promotion to this AUKUS deal. All right, and that's authorized by the Labor government, Canberra. Authorized by the Labor government. And I wonder if it's not one of those situations like out of Utopia where someone was like, they want to get rid of someone and so they promote him into something else. They're like, we need to get her the fuck out of here. And so, hey, guess what? You got a fun promotion anywhere the fuck else for $1 million. Please go.
Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah, you fire someone, they'll have an axe to grind. You like threaten them to quit, they'll have an axe to grind. But if you're like, we're giving you a huge pay promotion off your top, then they'll be like, oh, cool, won't question this and I won't be gossiping any further.
Yeah, it definitely reeks of Scott Morrison kind of like failing upwards at every available opportunity. They're just like, get this guy out of here, give him a promotion, get him out.
Well, what I'm not sure about, though, is whether or not she came directly from Human. No, she didn't. She ended in 2017. See, I don't know what she's been doing between 2017 and now, but she's her role on the AUKUS submarine project is a special advisor. So who knows what the fuck that means? That could mean literally fucking anything.
Special advisor means write your own job description, write your own JD. What do you want to do?
Adam, she was the secretary for the Department of Human Services until 2017, and then till September 2017, and then from September 2017 to July 2021, she was the secretary of the Department of Social Services. So kind of human services and social services adjacent to each other.
So same sort of thing.
And then from 2021 to July 2022 was the secretary of the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade, and then AUKUS.
Yeah, right. I was going to say, what do social services have to do with the submarine project? But I guess the foreign affairs and trade might have something to do with it.
Yeah,
but yeah, okay. But yeah, those kind of job descriptions with a $900,000 a year salary, special advisor, like she's a contract. She's not even employed by the fucking department. She's probably on some fucking weird contract for that much money. Like, what is she doing?
She does have a butt ton of accolade.
I'm sure she does.
Acronym things on the end, so I know there's always that of like your knowledge and prestige are worth money.
I think it's one of those things where it's just like, you know, people try and make a lot of excuses as to why these people are getting paid $900,000 a year, and they're like, oh, they've got to compete with industry and they've got to hire good people away from industry. And I think it's just like a kind of to the victor go the spoils kind of thing. It's like, if you've made it up shit mountain and you're at the top of the pile, you get all of the money. Congratulations, you won capitalism. Like, I really don't think it's got anything to do with the amount of value that they provide. Are you telling me the Prime Minister of Australia gets paid $500,000 a year, and what Kathryn Campbell does as some special rapporteur as part of the AUKUS submarine deal, special advisor role, nonsense job title, is twice as valuable to the country as the Prime Minister? That seems crazy to me.
But this is my point, is that, like, they're complaining about how expensive the AUKUS deal is going to be and how much money it's going to cost.
There's
nearly $1 billion. Am I getting that right? $1 million. Sorry, it's nearly $1 million. There's nearly $1 million worth of the however many $1 billion of, you know, which is still a fraction of the cost. But if everyone's getting paid a stagger, I'm not sure everyone's getting paid that much, but if people are getting paid a lot of money, then that's probably why your budget's blowing out by $400K here or there, willy-nilly. I mean, there's also a lot of other things in that which contribute to the cost, but it doesn't help, is my point. No. But yeah, like, what is her value add? Like, I can't. I mean, there's got to be some reason for it, but I can't fathom what that may be.
I'm struggling to find it.
And it also probably goes to show as well, you know, again, when you get these people involved in these big government projects, whether it be EY, whether it be PwC, whether it be someone who's been in and out of government, you know, left, right, and centre, you know, whether it is who's the former treasurer, Pedro Costello, like coming in and just having some special advice on a project, like what is their value add to that? And how do you know that they're giving you solid advice apart from just, I don't know, they used to do some stuff somewhat related to it?
I'll give you great advice for $900,000.
I'll tell you whatever you want for $900,000, bro.
How are they held accountable in 10 years' time?
But I mean, it's the same thing with CEO compensation and things like that, right? It's like, I don't know that anyone really provides, I don't think the CEO of Australia Post provides $10 million worth of value to the taxpayer I don't think anyone provides that much value. I really do think that there is a maximum wage that could be in place, that should be in place. It's like, there shouldn't be hundreds of times difference between the lowest worker and the highest worker in an organization. Because, like, I'll be honest, the people who are creating the value for Australia Post as an organization, it's the people delivering the fucking mail, right? That's the service, right? It is the people, not to get all seize all the means of production on you, but it's the people delivering the service that are creating the value that the service holds. I don't think some prick in a suit.
It's the lady that holds open the parcel collect window for 2 minutes past 6 o'clock because she can see me running towards the parcel collect window. Goes, fine, get over here. I get to get my parcel.
That person is creating real value for everyday Australians. Let me tell you right now.
Yeah, Horace Simpson filing his taxes just in the weird little football-shaped package and throwing it to him.
Literally.
That was just for me. Anywho, yeah, so that's a thing. Speaking of other things, and I guess workers who are work stuff.
People who might potentially be jobless might be interested to know that the jobless rate has posted a surprise fall this month as 33,000 more people have found work. And far be it from me to be upset. That's good, right? Undisputably good news for the economy. It does kind of suggest that the Australia's unemployment rate dipping to 3.5%. It's now kind of a 50-50 chance as to whether the Reserve Bank is going to raise interest rates again. Yeah, before it was kind of like...
Do we think Philip's going to get a last hurrah? It ends in September, right?
Make him hurt, boys.
He's not renewed in September, yeah? So he's still the governor of the RBA, and then Bullock, I forget their first name, but Bullock comes in after that, right? So is Phil going to get, another chance? Sure. But is Phil going to get another chance to raise some? Is he going to,
He'll have multiple chances, I think, won't he?
He'll have a chair on his way out. He can still do this and then peace.
Yeah, not only am I taking a printer, but I'm cranking the interest rate up by 50 basis points. Go fuck yourself.
Do you take printers when you leave work? Just back up a little bit. Is that something you've done? Taking your printer home with you?
I definitely don't have. I definitely don't have 12 printers in that closet behind me. Okay.
I think that's why
imagine him pulling out the scanner, the fucking multifunction device, just yanking it.
Just a full-size Canon, just like a full-size Canon floor printer, just wheeling it out. I don't even need this. I've got 12. What can I possibly need for another printer?
That's what I was thinking. Is that why my office has those giant printers that are, that come up to my chest in height that can do everything on them? Is that why they're that? So disgruntled employees don't
just wheel them out.
They quit. You can't just take that. Take
wheeling it out like a shopping trolley. Just all right, see you, Bob. Go fuck yourself.
That image, I just imagine trying to get one of them down a flight of stairs. That image is hilarious to me. I don't know why. But yeah, so they were thinking, the the jobless rate would increase because of the cost of living pressures and a few other little things that they have seen within the economy, some various trends. So when it didn't climb, so that was where more people are unemployed. I think that's put the wind up.
Never underestimate how angry a Philip Lowe can get when he hasn't broken the economy. Wait a minute, I thought I broke this already.
Yeah.
Look, you look at if you log on to Seek or LinkedIn or any of those sort of places to have a look, you will see that there are lots and lots of jobs, white-collar jobs in capital cities that are still available. Now, whether or not that is the same for people in, say, retail who are doing it a bit tough at the moment, whether it's the same for, people manufacturing, I don't know. But for certain sectors of the economy, there are still massive labour shortages.
Yeah, there are definitely labour shortages. That is a real phenomenon that we are seeing in the economy. But I'm also aware that, I keep seeing on the Aussie corporate Instagram page that's
that sounds fun.
XYZ. It actually is surprisingly spicy. The memes are good. But there are companies left and right. Telstra just stood down like 1% of their workforce. Like redundancies are happening. Like big companies are laying, it was like 472 people or something like that. They're laying off. Like layoffs are happening. We are seeing real effects in the economy, especially in sectors like retail and things like that. Like there are places in the economy that are not doing good. But I guess the economy as a whole is adding jobs. And so the net effect is, it's part, Philip Lowe says, all right, if you're going to party like this, I'm going to turn out the lights. I'll call the cops. I'll do what I got to do to stop this party. I'll do it. I'm crazy. I'm fired now. I don't give a fuck anymore. So
just crashes his boat into the power transformer.
It was funny, actually. The other day, it was my birthday a couple of weeks ago, and I got a bunch of gift vouchers, for various things. I had a lot. I had quite a lot, and I built them up sort of over time. There was some from last year as well. So I went shopping with like several $100s worth of vouchers, right? I've been saving them.
And that's the headset that you chose.
And that's exactly
okay.
Right.
Interesting.
Don't get me started.
No, don't get me wrong. I had a lot of vouchers. I really could have bought anything, and I chose this one. Okay.
Sidebar, the reason why my audio sounds crap is I bought this really fancy headset which has wonderful sound, but has terrible mic quality. So
the mic isn't so bad. I think it's bothering you more than anyone else. So.
It's bothering me. I don't know.
Yeah. Again, I apologize for recommending it.
It's my fault for literally not reading anything about them and just looking at your message as I walked into JB Hi-Fi and going, oh, that looks all right.
I'd like to say that Tom isn't at fault, but from what Adam's saying there, Tom is definitely at fault. It is 100% his recommendation that informed Adam's purchase. So
and that was informed by that particular headset, like winning a lot of people's roundups of like, best value.
It's good.
Yeah. Anyway,
I blame Tom.
But the point being was, I went in, I bought some shoes, I bought a new fucking jacket, bought some shirts. And I'm walking around Westfield Southland. And I'm going, this is exactly what I'm not meant to be doing. I've just contributed to inflation.
Oh, I've stimulated the economy. That's overstimulated. What have I done?
The fuck out of things. They don't want to go to Boost Juice. Like,
oh my God, you idiot. Don't tell me you got a coffee as well, you son of a bitch.
Oh, yeah, we got some donuts. Oh, I was fucked.
I don't know, Adam. They were vouchers, though, so that money was already in the economy.
Yeah, but like
someone put it in the economy to give it to him
a while ago. So it's not like, so like someone spent, a group of people spent several $100s over a certain period, and then you just used then. So it's not more money in the economy because the money was already there.
You make a good point, Tom. Maybe it doesn't stack up. I mean, there was
definitely. I
definitely.
Understand how any of this shit works.
He
$1 trillion coin.
It's just like the
$1 coin, motherfuckers.
It's just the voiceover from Arrested Development. Tom, you're making a good point. He hadn't.
He's not.
But look, I'll tell you who doesn't have a problem with controlling their economy, and that's China, because they're communists. That was a terrible joke, and
it's not really a joke. It's you've just described communism. Is that the economy essentially planned?
But they do have problems with their economy. But the reason why we're speaking about China,
it's because it's in the next article.
It's in the next, exactly right, George. But we don't like to tell them how the articles work because that would ruin the
mystique. That would ruin the pure, unbridled mystique of the idea that we post articles in a chat and talk about them, and then we talk about those articles on the show.
I love
the mystique.
How the articles work. Like there's like a process.
Guys,
like
we've got a proprietary process. It's been trademarked. What we do is we put the articles into a Discord chat and then talk about those articles. And if you rip that off, then so help you God, I'll sue the pants off you.
Look, I mean, EY came up with it for $2.3 billion, and
it was a good deal.
Yeah, but no, we can't give away the 11 secret herbs and spices of reading articles in a rundown.
It was a great prezzo. They really earned their $2.3 billion. So.
There was clip art and shit in it. It was
they used all the but the good stock images as well.
You know the transition where the slide swirls in,
where it wipes,
star
wipes.
When it spins in, and then it's like that 3D blocky text that has like several shades coming through it, and it goes into it.
Word art.
Yeah,
like 60s Batman. That's what they get paid the big bucks for.
And then some consultants just nailed it. Yeah.
Nailed it.
Anyway, so the Chinese are sending 2 spy ships to Australia, allegedly, according to various intelligence agencies.
I was going to say, how do we know? Did they do a press release? How do we know that they're sending spy ships?
Because we track them naval movements like it's fucking I don't know, something very important, because
like it's the Commonwealth Games.
Like it's the Commonwealth Games, or not like the Commonwealth Games, because we track their ships because we think they're going to invade Taiwan. That's why. Anyway, so we've got a big multinational military exercise being held in sort of Queensland, north of Australia, over the next couple of weeks, called Talisman Sabre, which is basically it's a biannual military exercise. It's going to have about 30,000 people involved. It's pretty big. All being paid for by you, the taxpayer. So enjoy that.
Nice.
But it's all about collaborating.
Can I drive a tank or something? I mean, if I'm paying for it, can I take part?
I mean, unless you're in a regional town that's sort of being used as like a thing they're going to assault, probably not. They do get members of the public to role play and do other different things sometimes, but you've got to have security clearance. And
can you be the man with the prosthetic who I'm going to murder?
That is a grim joke, Tom. That is extremely grim.
We need civilians to play the part of civilians in our pretend war crimes.
You have to wear a prosthetic leg, but I have both my legs. Don't worry, we'll get out the hacksaw.
But the big feature of these military exercises is they're all sort of amphibious. So there'll be a bunch of ships offshore, and they will launch troops onto the ground. And the Chinese naval ones will just sit in international waters, slightly off the coast, and basically listen to all our communications and stuff to see how we're going.
Just having a watch.
And Tom, this is where I want to cue you for your voice, which is kind of where the Chinese, we can do these exercises, but the Chinese will be.
Oh, there'll be Roz from Monsters Inc.
Yes.
Right. Okay.
Okay. Sorry. I was sort of
hang on. Let me move my mic away from my mouth, because
thank you. I appreciate
it's an
that.
impression that gets a little loud. This is my one claim to fame for any sort of decent impression.
It's a big wind up.
So the ships will be always watching, Wazowski. Always watching. You didn't file your paperwork last night.
Thank you, Tom.
Very good.
Very good. Discord cut it out a little bit, but it was magical.
Discord knew what the people needed to hear.
Yeah, did not like that.
But yeah, so they're just keeping tabs on us. They're just chilling out.
Yeah.
I'm assuming we'd do the same thing to them when they do their military exercises. I don't know why everyone has to do big military exercises. It seems like it's just a provocative way of starting a war.
Yeah.
It's like when South Korea and the US do military exercises in South Korea, and North's like, well, we're just going to launch a bunch of missiles now because that's pissed us off.
It does feel very dick measury, doesn't it? For international politics, I feel like if there was a couple more women in there, they'd be like, maybe let's just send them a sternly worded letter and maybe not potentially start World War III. Like,
I mean, it's meant to be essential for our readiness in a potential conflict. There's a bunch of
me big dick, me big dick, big dick than you. You have small dick, and then the other country goes, no, me big dick, me have biggest dick. That's how we conduct international diplomacy, with just shooting big dicks over each other's countries.
Yeah, after several thousand years of men controlling the world, that's pretty much how it's gone.
It hasn't gone great, has it?
No,
this is what I'm pretty sure I've said this on the podcast. Why don't we hand the keys over to the women? Because we've been driving for the last couple 100,000 years, and it's not been great. So
George?
Why don't we just Daddy's had a bit too much to drink. Mummy's going to drive us home, okay?
Yeah.
Maybe the
just
keys
summed up the key message of the Barbie movie.
Really?
Yeah, I'm not joking.
Speaking of the Barbie movie and China, there was a big controversy last week that the Barbie movie featured the 9 dotted line. Have you guys heard about this?
Oh, yes, that a map in Barbie showed that China had control over was it
the South China
Vietnam?
Sea. Yeah. So basically, there's a disagreement in the South China Sea over how much of the South China Sea that China controls, and China's basically taking. If you look at the 9 dotted line, they're like, and we control everything, even around here, all the way down south, and then up through the east. That's all of this stuff in the middle between all of these countries. That's all ours. And so that 9 dotted line, it's become infamous. And there was a map in the Barbie movie, apparently.
Yeah.
Now, I didn't see it.
Yeah.
It doesn't look like a real map. Like Asia is not quite
it's
a place. It's a gag, right? Like, but there is a 9, like a dotted line near where Asia is.
Yeah.
And I guess that's got people freaking out. So like the film was banned in Vietnam or it was blurred out or something like that because they're like, no, we don't want to acknowledge that the Chinese version of events is correct because it's obviously not. But
the map is like barely on screen for any kind of like decent period of time. And it is just like, well, we have a map here of Barbie Land and then this is the real world. And it just has like Asia and it's just crap. It's a crappily like put together wrong
it's like
map.
a hand-drawn, kind of like fake map. But it is weird that it's like...
Do you think that someone has deliberately done like a 4D, like, I'm going to put, it'll be funny. Like, no one will get it, but I'll put in
I reckon someone
dash line,
I don't think
and
it's
that'll be like an in-joke that we can have.
I don't think it's to be funny. I think someone's like, let's not piss off the Chinese because we'll probably earn like a couple $2 billion if this film comes out in China and becomes a big hit. So like... let's just not piss off the Chinese.
Some marketing executive was like, I would like to have...
I very much doubt Greta Gerwig of Ladybug fame has a really strong stance on
Lady Bird.
Lady Bird. What did I say?
You said Ladybug.
Ladybug, also a great film, but about
Haven't heard
insects.
of it.
I don't know. No,
okay.
I don't know if that's real. So it could be a horrible. Maybe it's something terrible. I have no idea. Ladybug may or may not be a real film. I have no knowledge. So
if it isn't, you should make it. The listener.
I'm going to pull a Marjorie Taylor Greene and say I don't recall. It's so Lady. I don't know if Greta Gerwig it really necessarily has like an insight onto geopolitics. It really does feel like something that some marketing person's like, got to make sure that the Asian market's happy, or at least the important part of the Asian market, I guess, which is China. So let's throw a 9 dotted line in. That'll be cool. But yeah, what's happened is Vietnam's like thrown a fit about it. The Philippines have thrown a fit about it. They're talking about not releasing it or blurring that part, or like it's a pixelated cock in the middle of the Barbie movie.
it's barely a moment in the movie. So yeah, if they have to blur it's gone. Like of when I heard that there was a map issue, and I thought like, oh, do they have a globe at some point?
It's like a big deal.
No, it's a shitty like children's drawn map.
But people get really serious about this. Like there was that thing where John Cena like said, I'm excited
Taiwan
about
was the first country to watch like Suicide Squad or something.
And then there was like this weird fucking hostage video that he uploaded afterwards being like, I'm a big fan of China. I'm so sorry. I really love China. And I didn't mean to suggest that Taiwan was a country and I love China. Please go see my movie. There's so much money at stake. Please. Please. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's a big deal. All that sort of stuff. It's not fun.
Anyway, so Chinese spy ships. What does this mean, Adam? What do we do about the Chinese spy ships?
Nothing. Like,
what do I personally do about the Chinese spy ships?
I mean, I don't know. Get a little tinny with a 6-pack and go out there and offer. You could actually be a diplomat yourself. You could get your tinny, get some Great Northern, because it's the beer from up here. Get the Great Northern Brewing Company slab. You drive out to the Chinese ship and you go, "Hey mate, do you want a beer?" And then you've just solved world politics.
And they've said, this is clearly a declaration of war. This mad Australian person appears to be throwing beer cans at us. Yeah, it definitely seems like some sort of aggressive situation.
Yeah. I don't know.
There is literally an event that I looked at. It was a YouTube video popped up, and it was the beer can regatta, which is held somewhere in Northern Australia, where they literally make boats out of beer cans and race them.
As in, like, entire boats that people can sit in, or are they like you cut a can in half and you're racing them down a creek?
No,
Oh,
I think
like
you can use plastic as the hull, but like you have to cover it in beer cans, kind of thing.
Right, so you're making a vessel that you intend to sit in yourself and race them.
And race
Wow.
with several people aboard. Yep.
And people say white people have no culture. This is great.
Yeah,
100%.
whereabouts did you say that was, Adam? Where does that
Somewhere
take
in Northern Australia.
Yeah, that checks out.
And then and there were a bunch of US Marines participating. So I'm thinking Northern Territory.
Right, near that army base.
Yeah. It's in Darwin.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Darwin.
Yeah.
I don't want to say it checks out, but that checks out.
Well, we have the Birdman thing down in Victoria. Isn't that something that they do?
Well, it's like they jump off
you have to try and fly as far into the Yarra as you can, so people just dress up in weird bird costumes and just sprint off a pier, and whoever gets the furthest wins.
Seems dangerous.
Yeah.
I don't know why that's a thing that we do.
But just wonderful. It's like the cheese wheel thing in England. You seen that, where it's like some sport where people have to chase a wheel of cheese that's rolling down the world's steepest hill, and it's just really people stacking it.
So like, the Italians have
running after it. You're just falling.
So the Italians have pecorino and Parmigiano cheese and all these sorts of balsamic vinegar from Modena. The French have champagne and wine from Bordeaux and all these sorts of things. The Spanish have jamon and all these hams. And Australians have boats made out of spent beer containers.
Yeah,
that is our cultural export.
Yeah, we have beer can boats and the pie floater. Like, what do you want from us?
There's something different in the waters down here. On that note, we have been, we are, and we always will be Unnatural Selection. Make sure you visit us at our salubrious home on the web, unnaturalshow.com. Make sure you follow us at our salubrious... what did I say? Salubrious home on the web, unnaturalshow.com. Make sure you follow us on all the bullshit social medias that have, do, or ever will exist at Unnatural Show. That's Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Threads, Wordle. Make sure you follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Threads at George Tsipos.
You can follow me on Twitter at Tom D. Heath and Threads at Tom.Heath.
You can follow me down to Talisman Sabre, where I will be actually taking my own advice and getting a tinny with a slab and going out to visit the Chinese as a gesture of international
scream obscenities drunkenly from the boat of a dinghy, from the hull of a dinghy at.
I figure if they're in international waters, but if they're close enough to the border, I could sit on one side
on the boat and just yell at them, scream out, "Oh, can't come over here!" Yeah, look, it is shockingly plausible that is something that you might feasibly do. Disturbingly so.
Please don't take that advice up.
No.
If you're listening.
This does not constitute medical or financial advice.
Despite the fact there is a literal war game with live ammo being played in that area, please don't do that.
It's fine.
Is it a war game if it's live ammo? Is that a game?
They'll use a mix of like blanks, and there will be some live firing as well. It just depends on sort of what they're doing.
Just a friendly shelling, just shelling each other. Why not?
Marcel the Shell. Thanks for listening, guys. I love your faces. We'll see you next week.
I can't believe I didn't mention earlier when you brought up Marjorie Taylor Greene briefly that she just held up pictures of like Hunter Biden getting a blowjob in Congress, and I'm like, are you just trying to make him look like the coolest dude? It's like, look at this asshole getting blown. And
we didn't cover that. We didn't cover it on the show this week, but she was just like, there's this great ad. Well, they turned it into a political ad. It was just Marjorie Taylor Greene being like, and Joe Biden wants to expand on the Great New Deal and help people with their health care and their issues and the urban issues and the rural issues, and he's expanding healthcare and education. And she's saying it like it's like obviously a bad thing. And then the Joe Biden people just put music over that speech and turned it into a campaign ad about all of the awesome things that Joe Biden is doing for the country.
10 out
so
of 10.
Good. 10 out of 10. Would recommend. Okay, bye.
Weapons grade moron.
Bye. I don't recall.
Bye.
I don't recall.
Bye.